What if I told you that one of the oldest, most foundational spiritual texts in the world might have been misunderstood this whole time? Well, today we're diving into a really unique framework from an author named Hundin Celestial, who basically reinterprets everything from the beginning of time itself to the nature of gods and ghosts. Yeah, that famous line from the Tao Te Ching. It's puzzled thinkers for, what, centuries? But the author we're looking at today says, nope, you've all got the sequence wrong. It proposes a completely radical new order for creation, and we're about to break it all down. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll start with creation itself. What is the One? Then we'll get into the cast of characters, gods, ghosts, you name it. After that, we'll explore how these unseen worlds actually interact with our own. And finally, we'll get to the big question. What's the whole point? What's this path back home? All right, let's dive right in at the very beginning. The author kicks things off by challenging a core idea in Taoism, and it all boils down to a really simple question. Which came first, the cosmic principle or a conscious creator? So, the traditional view, the one you've probably heard, comes straight from Lao Tzu. He basically saw the Tao as this unknowable, formless thing, the ultimate source. It was here before any god, before any creator. It's the great mystery behind absolutely everything. Okay, but here's where Hundin Celestial just flips the whole thing on its head. They argue that Lao Tzu was, well, mistaken. See, it's not that the creator is born from the Tao. No, the Tao is born from the creator. Think of it like this. A society has to exist first, right? And then that society can create laws and a constitution to govern itself. The people come before the rules. In this view, the Tao is exactly that. It's the set of laws, the spirit, the thinking of the universe, all established by a conscious creator who came first. And this slide just lays out that new sequence perfectly. So step one, you start with Wuji, pure disordered chaos. Then, out of that mess, just by pure chance, a flicker of order happens and boom, consciousness is born. That's the greatest creator. So what does this new consciousness do? Well, at step three, it takes all that chaos and organizes it into its own spirit. This becomes the Tao. From there, you get the creation of opposites, the two. Think good and evil, Jesus and Satan, as the text suggests. And finally, you have the three. When angels are added to the mix, that trinity then goes on to create, well, everything else. Okay, so if there's one single greatest creator at the very top, that begs a huge question, right? Where do all the countless gods, spirits, and demons from every single culture on Earth fit in? Well, that brings us right to our next section, a new catalog of all these spiritual beings. The framework is really clear on this point. In the entire universe, there is only one God, the greatest creator, period. So all those other figures that humanity has worshipped, from Zeus to Vishnu to the Jade Emperor, they all get reclassified. They're still seen as powerful, they're definitely worthy of respect, but they are considered angels, not the ultimate God. The author argues that humanity, basically out of a desire for comfort and for explanations, has invented this almost endless pantheon of deities, from the mighty Olympians all the way down to the humble kitchen god. These are seen as projections of our own wishes, not as fundamental cosmic beings. This system also completely reframes how we think about ghosts. They're not these malicious things to be afraid of. Instead, they're seen as, well, pitiful, confused souls who are literally trapped between worlds. Maybe they were obsessive in life, or they were victims of a sudden death, or they were spiritual practitioners who just went astray. The point is, they don't need an exorcism, they need comfort and guidance to finally move on. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating, because this whole cosmology becomes a practical guide for how to behave. It lays out a clear spiritual hierarchy. You revere the creator, you respect the angels, that all makes sense. But notice the instruction for devils. Revere, but keep distance. That's a striking departure from what you normally hear, right? And the system continues all the way down to soothing ghosts and confronting lesser entities. It's a complete code of conduct for navigating a very populated, unseen world. So, okay. This is a fascinating cosmic map, but how does it actually connect to our lives? What about those vivid dreams that feel way too real, or the frightening phenomenon of possession? The author uses a letter from a reader, a man named Mr. Lee, as a case study. Mr. Lee was having these intensely realistic, full-color dreams of heavenly worlds, celestial music, and divine beings. And he was baffled because he knew he couldn't have just invented these images from nothing. And the author's response is just striking. He claims these aren't just dreams, they are memories. The subconscious, he argues, only holds information from direct experience. Therefore, Mr. Lai must have been a Buddha or a celestial being in a past life, and these dreams are simply echoes of his time spent in those heavenly realms.
The framework also tackles the darker side of these spiritual encounters. If dreams can be memories from heaven, then what explains the terrifying experience of a spirit taking over a human body? To explain possession, the author makes a surprising turn, drawing an analogy from a completely different field, politics. He actually borrows a famous maxim from Mao Zedong. The core idea is that any space, whether it's ideological or, in this case, spiritual, it will not remain empty. If it's not filled by one force, it will inevitably be occupied by another.
So this political principle is then applied directly to the human mind. A consciousness that isn't filled with the righteous energy from revering the greatest creator becomes a spiritual vacuum. And here's why that matters to the individual. That vacuum, the author states, will inevitably be filled by other entities, ghosts, monsters, or spirits just looking for a vessel. In this view, spiritual health isn't passive. It's a matter of active occupation of your own mind. This brings us to the final and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. We've seen the cosmology, the beings, the interactions, but why? What is the ultimate purpose of understanding and following this entire system? The universe, according to the author, operates on a strict set of invisible laws called the heavenly principle. This is the true Tao, the will of the greatest creator. It's described as a vast net that misses nothing, ensuring that concepts like justice, balance, and karma are woven right into the fabric of reality. These principles govern everything. What they describe is a universe that is fundamentally just, ensuring cause and effect always align. It's also seen as benevolent and compassionate, and a system that responds immediately to sincere faith. So, the key to navigating this cosmos correctly is to understand and live in harmony with these invisible laws. So, the ultimate takeaway here is that this framework isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's a call to action. Its stated mission is to find souls who, like Mr. Lee from our dream example, originally came from heavenly realms. The goal is to gather them and guide them on the path home. And here's the crucial part: to do it before a predicted great cosmic change. And the author leaves us with this final provocative thought. If the universe is a hologram, that means every single person holds a piece of the total truth. This system is presented as one large piece of that truth, but the final question is turned back to the individual. What part of the universal puzzle do you represent?